girls, grab your beers.
Hey everybody, this is Charlie from Anthrax, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
This is Malek Akkad, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio.
You are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio. Yes, Kato Kalin listens to this all the time.
Welcome to today's Boondoggle. Now here's your host.
I am Monty Heath, so one Heath, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
Hey, what's up? It's John from Skillet, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle on Domain Cleveland Radio.
Fasten your seatbelts.
Sound the alarm. Incarceration Music and Tattoo Festival is back with Shinedown, Godsmack, Breaking Benjamin, Hailstorm, The Offspring, Chevelle, Bad Omens, Chimera, and so many more. Report to Historic Ohio State Reformatory this July 19th through 21st. 3 days of non-stop rock, tattoos, Blood Prison, Haunted House, and more. Passes on sale now at incarceration.com.
What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle. And a real quick housekeeping note, if you are watching us on YouTube or Rumble or BitChute or Odyssey, please hit that follow and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple, Google, whichever podcast platform you are utilizing, please hit that follow and subscribe button so we can continue bringing you conversations like the one I'm bringing you today. We are going to be exploring the Horrors Hallowed Grounds with host Sean Clark. What's going on, Sean?
How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. And you know, I just noticed, is that a Frankenberry behind you and Count Chocula figures?
It is.
That's awesome. I never knew they came out with action figures. That's badass.
No, well, they're not official. There's an artist that does those.
Oh, okay. So you got the unofficial hook up there, huh?
Yeah, just quick question. Is this live or is this pre-recorded?
It's live.
Oh, okay. So people are out there watching this right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so usually when I have somebody on for the first time, and that kind of takes me back with those characters in the background, but I like to ask my guests, originally, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Rock star. I was
nice.
I wanted to be a musician. That was the original dream, and you know, did a few records, got real close, but it just didn't pan out at the end of the day. So,
and what was it? Who was some of your early musical influences that caught your attention and attracted you to that?
Obviously, Kiss. I mean, Kiss is the one that really, you know, when I found out they were real people and not just comic book characters, because I was a little kid when I discovered them. You know, I was like, oh, I'd love to do that. But I think the band that really made me want to be a musician and really play live was Motley Crue on their first album, Too Fast for Love, as I saw them open for Kiss on that tour. And Kiss was supporting Creatures of the Night. And yeah, that kind of blew me away. And you know, Tommy Lee, I'm a drummer. I play everything, but I've always been the drummer. But watching Tommy Lee perform, you know, he was the first drummer I saw that was very animated, you know, doing the stick twirls and the this and that. And I was just watching him going, wow, that looks so cool. I want to do that. And that's kind of what really sucked me into wanting to be a drummer.
Nice. And then how did that eventually, like, what age range was that in when you first picked up like the drums and started playing?
I started playing drums at 12. And yeah, well,
And
did
then-
4 years of lessons, and then just started, you know, doing it on my own.
And then, like in high school, you meet some like-minded people. And then when did the band start for you?
Well, I had bands during high school, but nothing that did anything beyond playing our high school talent show. And then there was also a high school senior band day where there was 3 different bands in the senior class, and we all played an event. I think we each played like 4 songs, and I actually have it on video. It's pretty funny. But those bands never went anywhere. They were just, you know, we just did cover songs. My first real band didn't happen until 1989, late 89.
And have you always lived out in California, or what area did you grow up in?
I grew up in California. I moved here when I was 6. I was born in Anchorage, Alaska, but moved to California at 6. So I pretty much my whole life's been Orange County.
And then that was that the music area that you started playing out at?
Yeah. I mean, Orange County, and, you know, obviously we played LA because that's a big, you know, big music area. But yeah, that was, you know, we played some out of state stuff, but we never went on like a tour per se. But I've played in other places too. Yeah.
And what, like when you got together and started playing in the band and started playing out and hitting the strip and all that, what was that band and, you know, what was that scene like then?
Well, I mean, I was in the scene, basically the hair metal scene of the 80s. I was, as a kid, going to shows on the Sunset Strip in 1985, 86. I was really into a lot of local bands at that time. So I was all the clubs that I could get into, because I was 15, you know, at the time. Pretty much all the clubs were all ages except for Gazzari's, which was the one that I could never get into because I was underage. But like the Whiskey and the Roxy and the Troubadour I could get into. But I didn't start playing, like I said, 89. I was in a hardcore band called Yuckmouth. We did a 7-inch single and an album. And most of that stuff was not really your regular type of clubs. It was more like garage shows and warehouse shows, and because that was the Orange County straight edge hardcore scene was very kind of small time. There was really
like the VFW halls and stuff.
Yeah, well, there was only one real club back then that those kind of bands played at. Well, there was Fender's Ballroom, and then that was in Long Beach, and then there was Spanky's Cafe in Riverside, California. That's where we played the most. And yeah, so I don't even know if Yuckmouth ever played LA, come to think of it. I can't remember. But I know we played Berkeley, California, the night before Green Day played. Green Day was playing there. But yeah, that band, when that band kind of dissolved, I was in a couple other bands, short-lived. One that went on to get signed and have a record, a band called Downer. But I wasn't on that record. I was out of the band before that happened. And then had a couple other little bands that never went anywhere in that time period. But then I had a band called Malfunction, and that was the band that I really had momentum. And we did one record, and we had good management. We were managed by the same guy that managed System of a Down, and we opened for System of a Down at the Viper Room in Hollywood the night they got signed, and we were supposed to be next. And they used to do what they would call a showcase, where they would basically invite all the major labels to come out and check out the next big thing, you know. And that the night we opened for System, that was their showcase. And we had our showcase set up like 3 months later at the Dragonfly, and out of nowhere, our singer just quit, and it just derailed the whole thing. So,
oh, damn.
Yeah.
And then, you know, big horror movie fan, as, you know, we met at the Steel City Con in Pittsburgh, and, obviously you've done a lot with the horror team, but what was some of your earliest, memories of getting, you know, what attracted you to horror, and what were some of your earliest, movies that reeled you in?
Well, horror movies have always been a part of my life. My parents were very young when they had me. They were like 17 and 18. And it just seemed like a normal thing because they liked horror films, and they would go to horror films, and I would be there, and, you know, couldn't really afford babysitters and stuff. So, you know, I would tag along, and I really didn't understand what I was seeing. But I mean, I have vague memories of certain images that I saw of The Exorcist in the theater. You know, that's 1973 or 4. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, same thing, like 74. And then, I mean, the one that I remember the best that really affected me was Jaws. I think that was like 75.
Yeah.
And I don't know, to me, it was just always a part of my life and not anything unusual. And I gravitated towards them, you know?
Yeah, I remember for myself too. It's like, you know, Jaws. As a kid, we had like, I lived in this development, and we had a swimming pool all the kids would go to and enjoy, you know, swimming and playing tag in the pool and all that. I seen Jaws. I was afraid of the deep end for the longest time after that, you know. And the Exorcist, I was raised Catholic, you know, altar boy, all that stuff. And then those were the types of ones that like really like, man, this could really happen if I don't watch out. I'm not careful, you know.
Yeah.
And it was before all like the, you know, I'm a big fan of, you know, some of the gore and stuff, but back then it was like a lot was left more to the imagination and stuff. And our imagination could be the scariest place, I felt, you know.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. We moved into a house in Stanton, California, and for whatever reason, the people that owned it before us had painted the swimming pool black. And, you know, usually it's blue and you could see in the water, but they had painted it black. You couldn't see a damn thing. You couldn't tell if the water was clean or dirty. And I used to be terrified to jump in that pool because I couldn't see what was in there. And the one that really messed me up more than Jaws on that point was Humanoids from the Deep. When I saw that movie, it really freaked me out to go in the water. And I remember specifically being afraid to get into the pool because of Humanoids from the Deep. And also another time we took a trip to Lake Mead, that's heading out towards Las Vegas. And I remember I got a little snorkel and goggles, and I'm swimming around, and I'm looking, you know, under the water, and the whole time I was terrified, thinking I was going to see one of those creatures from Humanoids from the Deep, you know. But that's the great thing about, you know, being a kid and seeing movies like that is, you know, you just don't get that anymore as an adult. That fear was an adrenaline rush, you know. I wish I could still get it, you know. I wish that things could still scare me like that, but, you know.
Yeah, I remember too, like, you know, my sister took me out with some of her friends, I think when like Friday 13th Part 3 came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget how old I was. I was born in like 73. And I mean, the opening scene and everything, you know, I was just too scared. I couldn't hang, you know. So she was all mad and we had to leave. So I was throwing a fit. And I remember like, you know, talk about parents taking to the movies. My parents took me to Conan the Barbarian when it came out because they knew I was a comic book fan and they knew the comic Conan and whatever. Didn't know nothing about, like, you know, all the decapitations, blood and orgies and stuff like that. But my dad was just like, we ain't leaving, you know. So And I really wasn't freaking out about that. I was just like, you know, but my mom was more like, cover your eyes.
Yeah. My parents, you know, were very cool about all that stuff. There was no, I don't know, it was no big deal. Like they, you know, I don't remember it ever being an issue at all. So.
Yeah, mine had me later in life, you know, so I was like the baby of the family, you know, so it was just like, I was probably, my dad was past having kids, I would say, but mom wanted me, so here I am. But you know, and I remember too, like I don't know, like what you know, your area was like growing up, but we had a lot of like those late night hosts out here. Like the Ghoul and stuff, Ghoulardi and Big Chuck and Little John here in Cleveland and stuff. And I would catch a lot of the, you know, other horror movies growing up. Did you have something similar?
Well, you know, it's funny is I didn't really watch a lot of horror films because of horror hosts. Horror hosts really didn't seem, it's kind of funny. The horror host thing seems to be more of a Midwest, East Coast thing. But here, it's the funny part about it is I think we have the most famous horror host, Elvira, you know, which, but the thing was the Elvira show, I believe, as I recall growing up, it came on Channel 9 on Sunday nights. And so it wasn't like an every night thing. It was once a week, Sunday night, movie macabre theater. And she would play a really crappy film. It was always something like Plan 9 from Outer Space. It was never anything that was worth watching, you know?
Yeah.
I think we just watched it to see her parts, you know? And,
yeah, exactly.
So my main experience pre-VHS, which I don't think we really started renting videos until, I want to say it was like 1982, maybe. At the earliest, but prior to that, there was these movie services that before cable, they used to have these. You'd get these boxes, and there was Select TV, which we had. There was On TV, and there was the Z Channel, and that's how you saw movies. You know, you got like. You know, the little TV guide that showed like there would literally be like 4 movies a day. It was like pretty lame, really. You know, it wasn't a lot. I don't recall it being a 24-hour thing. I think it was like certain times of the day, mostly in the evening. And that's where I watched a lot of my films. And then when we got cable, which was around probably 82, 81, 82, then you know, you get like the HBO and Showtime, and I really learned a lot about films from those. But my favorite thing with Select TV was every Halloween they did a horror marathon, and it was always really cool movies. And some of my favorite experiences seeing films for the first time was on Select TV Halloween marathon. I'd sit there and watch 4 movies in a row, and that was a lot of fun to do every Halloween.
Nice.
I'm still trying to track down those old Select TV the guides from October. I've got a few of them. But I don't have the Halloween marathon ones. I'm still trying to track them down. They're not easy to find.
Yeah, and then that brings me to my next question. Then, like, because you've known as being a big collector of horror movie stuff, when did that start for you? Picking up some of the memorabilia and really getting into, you know, the background with horror.
Well, you know, I've always been a collector, you know, but as far as horror movie stuff, I don't even know where it really began. You know, I remember getting the Kenner Alien doll when Alien came out. So that would have been 79, you know, but I ended up breaking it and it got thrown away. I have a mint one in the box now in my collection, but you know, and the mindset of not getting rid of stuff and keeping it and trying to keep it in great condition that didn't start till my, like I was around 18 probably. Records, I was always pretty good about my records. I would always put them in sleeves and everything, and I tried to keep them as nice as possible. But actual horror, the first like horror movie stuff I can remember actually collecting. But now, mind you, there wasn't much merchandise then. There really wasn't. I mean, there wasn't action figures and toys of horror movies. I mean, that Kenner alien doll was a complete, that was just a fluke, really. So when I went to my first convention in 1989, Fangoria Weekend of Horrors, that's when I first saw all this merchandise, and none of it was licensed. It was all bootleg. People were making bootleg t-shirts and resin model kits, garage kits. That's where I really, started getting into that. I mean, I still have, I've sold most of them, gotten rid of most of the old garage kits. I still have this one right here. I keep it on my desk. This one I've had forever, from Clockwork Orange.
Oh, nice.
I've always loved this one, and one that I painted and put together. And but we didn't have a whole lot back then. You'd had to get promo items from video stores, if you're lucky to get a standee or one of the things that hangs from the ceiling or something cool like that. Yeah. Promotional items seem to be like really the only official stuff.
Yeah, or like the posters or whatever. If you get those, and those are usually kind of beat up, but
oh yeah, I would go into the video stores and beg for the posters, like, hey, can I have that when you take it down? So
yeah, they usually put your name on it. Okay, come back here. Yeah, I found some old Halloween ones in my garage from that exact doing that exact same thing. Yeah. And then you had mentioned that before, like the horror movie stuff, though, you were collecting albums, but anything else that you were collecting back in the day?
It's pretty much just the only thing I was really collecting way back was albums, really. Like I said, though, when it got into the late 80s, I started to realize, I think that's when I started to have a little sense of some nostalgia of my childhood. And then I started to go, oh, wow, I wish I wouldn't have thrown that away. I wish I would have kept that. Yeah. And that's when I started to get the realization, hey, everything is worth something. I don't consider myself a hoarder, but I'm probably an organized hoarder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can relate to that. My girlfriend says I'm definitely a disorganized. I'm a hoarder. I should probably be on episode of horror. I mean, it's not that bad, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I feel like you were saying, you kind of get a collection, kind of get a connection to it, and you're just like, I know I got to be able to get something for it, at least something that I put it into this thing. But how much money I threw away back in the day? I mean, Star Wars figures, that I would take out of the box and bury in the backyard and blow up with fireworks and stuff like that, to reenact some kind of scene, But then, as you started going to like the Fangoria and some of those cons, like what other kind of
sorry,
what else was attracting you to getting to know, like, more about like the movies you would watch and going and actually checking out some of the sites as you do now?
Well, I mean, that kind of happened by accident. As we started to get into going to the conventions, they're really the only conventions we knew about really in California back in the late 80s, early 90s was Fangorias Weekend of Horrors. And it was once a year, and it became our Christmas, man. There was a group of us. There was a group of 6 of us. And all we did all year was talk about the next Fangoria Weekend of Horrors. I mean, how excited we were. I mean, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. It was an electric time. Much like I described the feeling of being scared in those old horror movies. I wish I could still have that feeling I had when me and my friends went to those conventions, because it was a simpler time. You know, we were all just finding our way in life. You know, we were all just coming out of high school, didn't have a ton of responsibility yet. You know, so we've got crappy jobs where we're just trying to put enough money together that we can have a good time. And, you know, I got together $500 I'm going to bring to the convention. I can't wait, you know, what I'm going to get. You know, it was so exciting. We would all cram into like one hotel room. We're sleeping on the floor, 2 people to 2 beds each, sleeping on the floor with sleeping bags. You know, it was a party, man. It was so much fun. And then we heard about, I don't know, maybe in a magazine article or something, we heard about the Night of the Living Dead 25th anniversary. It was called the Zombie Jamboree, and it was at the Monroeville Convention Center. And when we looked into it, we found out it was right across the street from the mall from Dawn of the Dead. And we were just so excited, like, oh my God, the mall from Dawn of the Dead. We could actually go to that mall. And so we all put our money together. It was, God, I remember it was so hard to pull together. And I can't believe we pulled it off, because we didn't have the money for regular plane tickets. I knew somebody, I worked with somebody whose husband worked for like Southwest Airlines or something. And they could get us standby tickets, and they were super cheap, but it was like you weren't guaranteed a seat. And it was like they were like jump seats. I mean, they weren't even like real seats. They were like stewardess jump seats kind of things. But unfortunately, that airline, I think it was Southwest. I can't remember for sure, but I think it was. And I remember them saying that they didn't go to Pittsburgh. The closest it got to was Cleveland. So we flew into Cleveland,
Nice.
rented a car, I remember we landed in Cleveland. I remember it was a couple connecting flights, got to Cleveland, got a hotel room we all crammed into, rented a car, drove to Monroeville, and did the event. And when I remember we got there, it was at like 5 p.m. and it was getting close to the sun starting to go down. We jammed over to that mall, man, and we were so excited. And if you watch my Dawn of the Dead Horrors Hallowed Grounds episode, I show footage from this trip, and I have long hair and a ponytail and stuff. And you could just see how we look like kids in a candy store, man. I mean, it was so much fun. I would take a human life to go back and relive that moment. I mean, it was so much fun, man.
Nice. So that was the beginning of your relationship then with Monroeville and the convention center.
Yeah, which I never thought, first off, I never thought I'd ever be back, let alone come back almost, once a year at the minimum, sometimes twice. But when we walked in that mall, and I've said this, it's just kind of getting to be like an old story, but when we walked in that mall, there was this incredible sense of nostalgia that hit me. Like I had just walked into my childhood home or my old elementary school. But I'd never been there, but I knew it because I'd watched that damn movie so many times. Yeah. I recognized everything. And it was this crazy feeling I had. And I was like, wow, I wonder if I could do this for other movies. I would love to see stuff from my favorite movies. And that's where it started. That's where I got the bug. 1993, Monroeville, Pennsylvania.
And then that's when the bug started for Horrors Hallowed Grounds.
Yeah, that was the genesis right there. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, you reminded me too when you were talking about the Fangoria conventions with your buddies, how it was like a party. We have something here near Cleveland called Cinema Wasteland.
Oh, I used to go. I used to go every year. for whatever reason, that promoter, Ken,
yeah.
I don't think he likes dealing with agents. He likes to deal directly with celebrities. And he worked with me for a couple of years and then just kind of like stopped. And I don't think I've been to a Cinema Wasteland since, I want to say, maybe 2010. I mean,
wow.
We had
to cross paths there then, because like me and my buddies, it'd be the same thing because we live in the area. We'd get a hotel room. We'd have the party room with the music playing, everybody playing air guitar and stuff.
Yeah,
everybody be trading passes to go through the convention, and you know, every time Bill Forsyth was there one time, and then he was about partying in our room after the convention center closed down. And then what was his name? The original ghoul, original zombie from Night of the Living Dead.
Bill Heinzman.
Yeah, he came up and hung out with us in our room and stuff. I mean, that was the thing we would do back in the day here. And yeah,
I think one of the last guests I took there was Richard Brooker.
Oh,
he
yeah,
was still alive. Jason from Part 3. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And then, like, you know, then it's a kind of similar thing. It kind of, for me, it's like, you know, I haven't gone as much. I mean, I just celebrated 15 years sober, so it's like, you know, it doesn't have the same appeal, you know, hanging out in the room with my buddies now. But, you know, I'll still
that
go.
Was the other thing. I really don't drink, or I've never done a drug in my life. I don't smoke. I've never even tried it. But I don't say that I don't drink. But if somebody gave me a beer and said, "Hey, okay, sure, I'll drink," but I don't drink. You know what I mean? You'll never see me go up to the bar and buy something. If somebody gave me a drink, I'll go, "Okay, fine, I'll have one." But back then, you know, we're like, "Let's get hammered," you know?
So. Yeah, exactly. And then it would be Cinema Wasted Land, you know?
Yeah.
But,
I used to really like that show, you know. I mean, but like I said, for whatever reason.
It was cool.
You know, and I see him all the time. He always does Flashback Weekend as a vendor, you know, and he used to do Horrorhound as a vendor. But I just don't. I mean, he doesn't like to deal with agents, and I guess, and you can really see how that reflects his guest list. You know, he doesn't really get new guests. It's like the same kind of
like
old school. You know,
that's what I was gonna say too. It's just like, I mean, it kind of like became like for me now, you know, because, you know, I mean, back in the day you'd have, you know, Sid Haig and, you know, Bill Moseley, and, you know, when the Devil's Rejects was hot and everything, and hanging out with those guys, like I said, Bill Forsyth. And I mean, the last one I went to, Felissa Rose was there, you know, and they had the sleepaway camp people, but so I'm assuming maybe they might have had to deal with agents for them too. I don't know, but but yeah, I mean, it's still kind of a good time. Now I hit more of the fan expos or the Wizard Worlds and stuff like that. You know, took my daughters to the Walker Stalker convention when it was in Nashville, back when they used to have those. And
those were a blast back when, you know, that show was at the height of its popularity. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, and then I saw that you struck up a friendship with Norman Reedus from that. How did that come about for you guys?
Well, I mean, it was a working relationship. I mean, I consider him a friend, but I started working with him because of Boondock Saints, and so I was just booking him to conventions like I book any of my clients, and he just happened to get a hit TV show. And fortunately I had a relationship with him already, you know, so he knew me, he trusted me, and I was able to participate in the wild ride that has become his massive success, you know. And we're still friends, we're still working together. I mean, we're going to Osaka Comic-Con in Japan, I think next month. So yeah.
Oh, nice. And then, so you used to then got into, I mean, not just being a fan of cons, but then you would started organizing some of your own as well.
Well, it started. I was vending at a few shows. Like I started getting into like I was talking about all these vendors were selling basically bootleg stuff, right? So I was an enterprising young man, and I thought, how could I make money doing this stuff too? So I started coming up with things that I thought horror fans would want to own. And I started creating merchandise and getting tables at events and trying to make a little money. Through that, I started making friends in the industry, celebrities and promoters, and then I ended up being one of the organizers of the Halloween 25th anniversary convention, which, then spawned the 25 Years of Terror DVD, that documentary we did. And through that, I learned about booking celebrities, because I was one of the people responsible for booking celebrities for that show. Now, mind you, I wasn't making a percentage or anything. I wasn't an agent. I was just, trying to get guests there so we could have a good convention. But through that experience and meeting those people, doors started to open, and they wanted to do more events. They're like, hey, that was really cool, that, the thing we did, the 25 Years of Terror. Are there other shows like that? I'm like, oh yeah, there's other shows. And they're like, hey, can you hook me up? And that's kind of how it started. And I was doing it as a favor. And then I was like, well, how can I make this benefit me? I'm putting in this time and this work to get them these gigs where they're making money. So I figured out that as an agent, that the convention would fly me in and give me a hotel room, and I'd get to go to the show for free. So I was just doing it to get into conventions for free and have a good time. And then the crazy things started to happen. I started to make a little money, and it started to grow and grow and grow. And at some point I was like, wow, I think I could do this full time, and I had to make the hard decision to quit my job, which was a good paying job, and take a chance, because I felt like if I really was going to take it to the next level, I had to do 100%, and I took the chance. It was February 2006. I walked away from my job and never looked back. So.
Now, you mentioned, first time out to Monroeville, and you guys, were there for the, checking out the scenes from the movie that, Dawn of the Dead, and you said you filmed a little bit of like, yourselves going through there, but when did like kind of the host bug grab you to start like, like with Horrors Hallowed Grounds, and then the 25 Years of Terror? I mean, you went from kind of behind the scenes. When did you go in front of the camera, and when did that?
Well, I started doing Horrors Hallowed Grounds online as an online article. I want to say it was like, it's fuzzy for me exactly when it was, but I think it was like 2002, maybe. And when we were doing 25 Years of Terror, well, let me backtrack a little bit. In the late 90s, it had to have been 96, I think, 96. I put together a video. I filmed Halloween 1, 2, and 3 filming locations. And I thought it would be fun to edit them together with the film clips and kind of show a before and after. So I bought, I don't know if you remember these, back in the day, they used to have these super VHS players called, that had flying erase head feature, where you could do seamless editing, right? Because remember when you'd edit back in the day, you'd stop and start, and it would be all gonna get all crappy for a second. So this actually gave you seamless editing, and you could do audio editing too with these VCRs. So what I did was I edited them together, like the clips and this and the footage I shot, and I put it all together. Then me and a friend of mine sat down and did an audio commentary over it, just talking over it. And we were like eating pizza and drinking beer and kind of getting tipsy and being really immature kids, which we kind of were. Yeah. So I somehow at some point started selling copies of that video, and it made the rounds. It was called Halloween the Retrospective. Now, the funny thing, I've told this story many times, and I keep waiting for somebody to go, dude, I have that, and give me a copy. I don't have a copy of it. I don't know what happened to it, but my original copy's long gone. But that was basically the demo, if you will, of what became Horrors Hallowed Grounds. Now, when we were doing the 25 Years of Terror documentary, I was in Malek Akkad's office, and we were going, the documentary was done, and we were trying to put the whole thing together for Anchor Bay. And he said to me, he goes, okay, this is great, but we could use some more bonus features for the DVD. I feel like we need some more stuff. Do you have any ideas? And I said, well, there's this thing that I do online that's gotten pretty popular. It's called Horrors Hallowed Grounds. And I go to the filming locations, and I kind of pitched him my idea for a show. Like, I go and I kind of show a before and after, maybe take some of the actors with me. I might be able to get PJ Souls to do it. I'm good friends with her. And he's like, that sounds cool. Go ahead, do that. And I was like, really? And he goes, yeah. He goes, but we need it in 2 weeks. And I was like, shit. So me and my buddies went out and shot it immediately. And PJ was cool enough to come walk some of the locations with me. And, she's still a really close friend to this day. I love her dearly. And that's how it started. The very first episode was released on DVD from Anchor Bay, kind of crazy. And
that's awesome. In
my head, I thought this is going to springboard me, and it didn't. It really kind of didn't do anything. As that came out in 2005. And then I had to go to a convention in 2007 for, I had a convention in Texas, and my camera guys were coming with me. And I said, while we're there, let's do Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and let's just have it ready for when they call, kind of thing, which never happened. Well, I ended up sitting on that episode for years before I ever released it. And then I think when they came around to do the 40th DVD, Dark Skies, I reached out to Dark Skies and said, hey, I have this. It's pretty amateur compared to what I do now, but if you guys want it, I'll give it to you. And they're like, hell yeah. So they put it on the DVD and Blu-ray. But I was almost kind of done with the video version. I wasn't doing anything. It didn't go anywhere. My online articles were still going. Horrorhound magazine reached out and brought me in to do it in the magazine. But the video version wasn't going anywhere until 2010, when they were doing the Never Sleep Again Elm Street Legacy documentary. They hit me up and said, hey, we'd love for you to do one of those like you did for Halloween, 25 Years of Terror. So that kind of got me back into it. And then there was another gap of inactivity. And I want to say it was 2014, maybe 13, 14, where Michael Felsher from Red Shirt Pictures contacted me and said, hey, there's this new company called Scream Factory. They're an offshoot of Shout Factory. They're doing special edition Blu-ray releases of Halloween 2 and 3. Would you be interested in doing your episodes, Horrors Hallowed Grounds for those? I was like, hell yes. And that's where that relationship started. And that kind of got me back into it again.
Nice. Now, before, going back to when you were still a fan, I'm
still a fan.
Yeah. Yeah. But, before you were even doing the on location stuff, do you recall, because I'm a huge fan of Halloween myself, as well growing up. We had, like you said, we had Freddy, for that genre, the Nightmare on Elm Street. We had Friday the 13th, Jason and stuff. But Michael Myers was always, for me, That was the one that really, like the first Halloween, like I said, going back to the imagination too. It didn't show a lot, but it left a lot in your imagination. Still one of my all-time favorites. How was your experience seeing Halloween and getting pulled in to that?
Well, that started with me was the commercial. I saw the commercial on TV, you know, and I remember it vividly, you know, that Halloween, the night he came home, and him coming down the stairs, and it freeze frames on him coming down the stairs. You know, I remember that TV commercial, and it freaked me out. And I was like, oh my God, I want to see this. But my parents weren't interested in seeing that movie for some reason. And I remember we went to the drive-in. I want to say it was Highway 39 drive-in in Garden Grove, California. Long gone, unfortunately. Seen a lot of classic films there. But I remember it was playing the night we went to see something. I don't know what the hell it was, but that theater had 4 screens. And as my parents watched whatever they came to see, I was staring out the back window at the other screen across the way, watching Halloween. And I couldn't hear it, but I'll tell you what, watching it with no sound was even kind of more terrifying for some reason. You know what I mean? And I watched it. I wouldn't take my eyes off it. And that's how I first saw Halloween. So,
and then go see it later with the sound and with the soundtrack, you know, how did
I didn't get to see it in the theater, on that first run. It came on, it was part of that marathon on Select TV. That was the first time I saw it. And then, Halloween 2 came out, and I talked to my Aunt Robin into taking me to see it, and she took me to see it. So from part 2 on, I saw every one of them properly in the theater, you know, with sound.
Yeah, for me, it was like the first 2 were on. For me, I had to see on TV, but I think it was 3 that started me going with my friends to the theater, and then we go, you know, and I love 3 for its own, you know, thing, but it was just like, man, where's Michael? Where's Michael? You know, and obviously a lot of other fans felt the same way. So then when 4 came and it was the return of Michael Myers, that's what started for me. I could not go see it like either opening night or first weekend with my friends when a new Halloween and Michael Myers came out.
And oddly enough, Halloween 4, I saw at Highway 39. I drove. Now I'm older. I have a car. And I saw it on a double feature with Hellraiser 2 at Highway 39 drive-in. So
nice. And then, you know, as the, you know, the series would go on, I mean, it, you know, they would have some hits and misses. I mean, some not so popular ones, but it's just that Michael Myers character I really, you know, I wanted to go see. I wanted to be a part of. A lot of people didn't like, I think, 6, you know, but I really enjoyed the whole, like, you know, the whole ruins thing and the whole tattoo. And then, you know, who was everybody would say, oh, John Bon Jovi broke him out of prison or whatever at the end of 5 or whatever. But, you know, I like that whole like old, like religious cult theme, you know, and with Paul Rudd in there and stuff, probably one of his first films. But you know, when it finally kind of went away, and then Rob Zombie brought it back. I like to get your take on the Rob Zombie remake.
Well, I mean, it's funny. It's like I was very excited for it, first off. But at first, when I first saw it, I wasn't really stoked on it. It kind of grew on me over years. I had to kind of disconnect and appreciate it for what it was. Same with his second one. I hated Halloween 2, but then it started to grow on me. I kind of started to like, okay, you gotta Don't try to compare it to the other ones. Let it be its own thing. And I started to appreciate it more and more. And now I like both of them. I'm not so much a fan of the young Michael stuff, really, in the first one.
Yeah.
But once they get past that and he's grown up, I start to enjoy it more.
Yeah, I felt the same way, and I'm still. I guess I guess I got to give the second one another chance. But I'm kind of like, still not really a big fan of that. And the first one I went and saw it, like I said, in the theaters with my friends, and it's like, I love the soundtrack. I always love the soundtrack in his movies, because it's like that's my time growing up. But I didn't really dig the whole, like, okay, there's a lot of kids that come from dysfunctional families and they don't become superhuman, like killing predators, out there or whatever. But, but like you said, over time you have to kind of give it what it is. It's a whole separate re-imaging, I guess, from another person's perspective. But then, I was a fan of this latest trilogy. How did you feel about it?
I liked it. There was a lot of mixed opinions on ends.
Yeah.
I thought Kills was my favorite of the three. Excuse me. But I liked Ends. Ends is actually a good movie. I just feel like, and I think this is the opinion of a lot of Halloween fans, is that's not how I would have ended it.
Oh yeah.
I don't mind it as far as the way it went down, but that's not how I would have done it. I kind of feel Halloween fans, for better or for worse, Michael is their hero. Yeah. And even though he's the bad guy, you don't ever want to see him vulnerable. You don't want to see him weak. And that's what I think a lot of people had a problem with, was nobody wants to see this unstoppable killing machine getting bullied by a kid that gets bullied by, nerdy band types, So,
yeah.
So again, the movie's good. The acting is good. The direction is good. I love everything about it. The kills are great. The makeup, the mask. It's just, I think it wasn't what we wanted to see happen, especially the way they advertised it. When you watch the trailer, it looked like this epic battle between Laurie and Michael, which really only happened right at the end of the movie. And it was barely a fight at all,
Yep. Yeah, and after all the, the history of those two, and I feel the same way. Like, I liked the first one. I liked Kills, and it's almost like, for me, I probably would have ended it, with that, when the city comes together and they face the fear or whatever, and then they could have had their scene where they carry him off into the thing like they did at Ends or something after Kills,
Yeah.
For him to come back and then all of a sudden just be weak, and this other, I don't know, it was almost like we're passing the evil on, kind of like Jason Goes to Hell or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. So I too wasn't really a fan of how it ended, but from what I hear, there already somebody out there planning on, bringing it back in a different way,
Oh yeah, it'll never end. I mean, Michael, Jason, and Freddy are the modern day Dracula, Wolfman, and Frankenstein. They are going to keep making movies well beyond our lifespan. There's going to be Halloween movies made after you and I are long dead. So, so it is what it is. I'm just happy that we live in a place where we're getting more, for better or for worse, we're still going to have more Michael Myers coming,
Have you checked out any of the fan films that people make out there?
Nah, I'm not interested in fan films.
I've seen a couple that were, you know, kind of funny or entertaining or whatever, but yeah, I mean, I'm more like, I feel the same, you know.
I got really kind of pushed into watching that one Friday the 13th fan film. It's probably the most popular one. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I don't.
There's one and it has like cameos from like Tom Matthews and stuff. I actually thought that was pretty good. You know, but at the same time, I have a hard time getting too invested in those films because I know they're not going to amount to anything. You know, they're just fan films where, you know, the official Halloween films we're going to be talking about forever, you know? So, and there's merchandise and there's a whole, you know, a reason to be vested in them, you know, where a fan film, I don't know. I don't really usually give it the time of day. For some reason, I watched that one because somebody really just pushed me into it. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, you know, it's not bad. But I've yet to see a decent Halloween one. I mean, I've tried to watch a couple. People have suggested me, and I'm like, no thanks.
I had some friends from high school that made one, and it just because they were my friends, I watched it, and it was meant to be campy and stupid, but it was Michael versus Rambo. So maybe I'll send that one to you. Check out.
No, please don't.
But now, you know, going back to Horrors Hallowed Grounds and how that has grown for you, you've also been co-hosting with Christopher Nelson the Thing with Two Heads show.
Yeah.
How did that relationship come together for you guys, and when did that show start?
Well, I had known Chris for years, and he knew me for years. Like, we'd see each other out and about, and it would always be kind of like, oh, hey, man, hey, you know, just kind of a polite, like, hello. And funny thing is, we both thought the other person hated them, you know. Like, I would see Chris, and I'd be like, oh, that guy can't stand me. And Chris would look at me and say, oh, that guy can't stand me. So we never really talked. And it wasn't until Halloween 2018 where we finally spoke, because I don't even remember who introduced us, to be honest with you. Maybe it was James Jude Courtney. I don't remember. Maybe it was Malek Akkad. I don't recall, but obviously, because I've always been so connected to the Halloween franchise, having worked with Malek, you know, for so long on various projects, you know, we met and we talked and we hit it off, and we became friends. And when we did, we did the 40th convention, which was right on the weekend that 2018 opened. That's probably when Chris and I really became closer. I don't know when it all happened. I just know that we became friends, and then excuse me, and then I visited set on Halloween Kills. He invited me to, well, Malek did, and he invited me, and I went out to set and I hung out with Chris the whole time. And then COVID hit in 2020. So when COVID hit, one day, I mean, Chris and I would just talk on the phone all the time. We'd always talk on the phone, and we'd be on the phone for hours just talking movies, you know, and we had so much in common. And one day he just goes, you know, we should just start a podcast. And I was like, I'm down, you know? And I said, look, you know, I have a YouTube channel that I registered and started a few years back, but never really did anything with it. I planned to do something with it, never really had the time. And I think at the time that he asked me, I was just starting to like, I'm sitting at home doing nothing. So I'm going to start taking all my old content, Horrors Hallowed Grounds episodes and stuff, and start uploading them to YouTube and getting all the bootleg ones taken off of YouTube, because there's all these people that have been putting them up for years, ripping them off of the DVDs from Scream Factory and making money off of them. And I was like, that, I should be doing that. So I started to put this together, and I was like, oh, this is a great idea. This is one more thing I could put on the channel. That's cool, So we agreed to do it, and, we started doing it during COVID just for fun, easy, just like we're doing right now,
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, what else were you going to do? You couldn't go to locations and continue doing, when we were locked down at the time.
I did do a lot. I did do a lot of locations during COVID. It was actually, you couldn't get inside places because of COVID, but as far as going to locations outside, it was the absolute best time to film because nobody was around and there was no traffic. I was doing all the stuff in LA. It was so easy. I mean, it's such a nightmare now, dude. If I want to go hit up a couple locations tomorrow, I'll spend all day in traffic just trying to get to them. It's a nightmare. But back during COVID, shit, I could knock out a whole movie in one day because there was nobody on the road. It was beautiful. COVID was awesome. I mean, I'll be honest with you, if it wasn't for COVID, my channel wouldn't really be doing anything. There would be no Thing with Two Heads. I probably wouldn't be doing Horrors Hallowed Grounds anymore. I mean, it really gave me something to do. And I really kind of realized how much I loved it, And another thing I was able to do at home, sitting at home by myself, bored, was the collection videos. I said, well, let me start doing videos about my collection. People seem interested. Another thing that I could put up there.
Yeah, I mean, same thing for me. It's like it was around COVID when I started doing this, and using I used to be a concert promoter here in Cleveland, and just my connections in the music industry and stuff. It's like, well, let me talk to some people and do something, and everybody was looking to kind of get their stuff out there, despite to stay, in people's ears. Despite not being able to tour and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, looking back, yeah, it was a lot easier to get people on, I think, back then.
Yeah.
Too, But so I want to ask you too, then, going back and looking at, all the locations you've been to and episodes that you filmed with some of your favorite movies over the years. What would you say? I mean, I know this is going to be hard to wind down, but can you like, which one of your favorite episodes that you got to do?
My favorite episode was probably the Session 9 episode, because it was a challenge to put together. Kind of the Dawn of the Dead one was a fun one to do because it was a challenge to put together as well. But, I'd been such a huge fan of Session 9. And I went to Danvers, Massachusetts twice and broke into that building with friends and filmed in there. But I wasn't filming an episode. This was back in 2002, 2003, 2002, 2003. And so I had all this footage I'd shot in there, but it was super amateur, with handheld camcorders and shit. So when it came time that they finally got around to doing a special edition of Session 9 from Scream Factory, I said, hey, I want this gig. I want to do the whole thing. I want to do all the bonus features. I want to do the interviews. I want to do a Horrors Hallowed Grounds. I want to do everything. And they let me do it. So that everything on that Blu-ray came from me, that I recall. We did all the interviews with all the actors, filmmakers, but for Horrors Hallowed Grounds, I went back to all the filming locations where the building used to stand. It's only the center of it still exists, and they rebuilt it for condominiums. So like the entrance to the condo complex is this classic part of the building. And it, you know, it was an insane asylum, you know, and it was cool to go back and kind of show it now and add the footage from when I went there before. It was just a really fun episode. Beyond that, you know, doing all the Halloween 3 locations with Tommy Lee Wallace was so much fun. I enjoyed that a great deal. The Clockwork Orange episode I just did, I'm really proud of, and that was a lot of fun. And also, American Psycho was a blast, and that's a movie I love. It's so funny. You just never know which episodes are going to do well. I mean, I was so sure American Psycho was going to be one of my biggest episodes because nobody had ever done it, and it's got such a cult following. And for whatever reason, that episode just did not do well. I mean, in comparison to my other episodes, I think it has like 18,000 views. Where like, and that's in like almost a year, right? I don't remember how long it's been. So I'm put maybe half a year, but like Clockwork Orange has been up a month. It has like 81,000 views. You just never know which ones are going to pop, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that one ended up being a little bit of a disappointment as far as, I thought it would gain traction, you know?
Have you ever been to the Mansfield Reformatory where they filmed Shawshank Redemption?
No, I haven't.
Out here in Ohio?
I've always wanted to go, but I mean, I know it's been well covered by people, but just as a fan of that film, I'd like to see it one day.
Oh yeah, you should definitely come out. I would highly recommend, being a big music fan as well, coming out and checking out the Incarceration Music Festival that they have there every year. That's in July. Danny Wimmer presents, and a friend of mine, Dan Jansen, co-promote that, and it's a really good time because then you can do some of the tours through there. People get tattooed in there, which I don't know if I'd get tattooed in that environment, but I'd still go check out the to see like Slipknot and them performing with that in the background, with the exterior of the prison out there. It's a pretty cool weekend.
That sounds cool.
And then I wanted to ask, what movie have you always wanted to do a Horror Hallowed Ground of, but haven't had the opportunity yet?
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, the ones I really, really want to do, I've probably already done. The obvious ones that I've never done for the basic reason that so many people have done them. I'm trying to, I want to go as a fan and do it just as a fan. But, a movie like Jaws, there's so many location videos, so many, tons. I don't think I could really bring anything new to the table, except for just my version. But as far as ones I haven't done that I really want to do, okay, here's one. It's not horror, but one of my bucket list locations. Okay, this answers your question perfectly. This is one I've always wanted to do. It's a bucket list. It's Meatballs.
Meatballs, nice.
Yeah, and I'm gonna try to do it this year. So
nice. Well, that goes to my next question. What kind of goals do you have set for Horrors Hallowed Grounds going forward?
Well, right now my goals are just getting all these goddamn episodes I've shot, edited, and put up, because I have almost a dozen finished episodes that I just need to finish editing. Editing takes the longest. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist. And so I really take my time. I'm trying to get one up, hopefully by the end of this weekend, maybe to come out by Monday, my next episode, which is, and I said this last week thinking I'd have it out this week, but then I get busy. I'm a busy guy. So I'm trying to make time to sit down and edit, and I have to be in the right headspace. You know, I have to have the, you know, my girlfriend, you know, we live together and everything. She's been with me. We've been together like 10 years. You know, if she's here and she, you know, it can be a distraction, you know, like last night, I was going to edit last night. She's, oh, let's watch this movie. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, it's hard to twist my arm to get me to sit down and watch a movie. But at the same time, I was like, shit, I really wanted to edit tonight. But anyway, my next episode is Near Dark, the vampire movie from '87.
Okay.
You know it?
Yeah. Yeah. Was that the one in, no, I'm thinking of, was that when they got locked in the cemetery, or no, I'm thinking of
no.
a different one.
No, Near Dark it's Lance Henriksen, Bill Paxton, Jeanette Goldstein, basically the cast of Aliens, and Adrian Pasdar and Jenny Wright, where they're like this little pack of vampires, and she meets him. Jenny Wright meets Adrian Pasdar and bites him, and basically they're trying to get him to join the group, but he's resisting it. And it was directed by Catherine Bigelow, you know.
Okay.
So anyway, great film. If you guys don't know it, it came out the same weekend, I think, as Lost Boys, and Lost Boys blew it out the water. So
I was going to say, it sounds kind of like, you know, with Michael and everything, you know, trying to get him
to be honest with you, it's very similar as far as that basic story. It's very similar. Yeah.
And that's funny because that's where we met at Steel City Con. You just finished talking to the actor that played Michael. And we were standing there at the Steel City Con convention when I talked to you and got that picture with you and everything.
Yeah.
So nice. Everything goes back to the Lost Boys.
Yeah, and that's an episode that was a monster one for me. Took me a couple years to get it done. That was a beast. I'm glad to have that one off my plate. So.
Nice. Well, I appreciate your time, Sean. Before we get ready and wrap up here, I mean, there's so much more I feel like I could talk to you about with just being horror fans and collectors and stuff. And I guess one more shout out to the Frankenberry Count Chocula figures behind you. But you know, were those some of the ones like you were showing earlier, the Clockwork Orange, some of the artists that would make stuff up? Like, is that something similar there with those guys?
These are new. I mean, there's a guy who's making these right now. But I don't really, to be honest with you, I don't really buy too much stuff like this anymore. I just thought those were so cool.
Oh yeah,
because it's like his own take on them, and they were reasonably priced, and they're super high quality. So I just, and if he makes a Boo-Berry and a Fruit Brood or a Yummy Mummy, I'm gonna be all over him. He can keep Carmella Creeper. I won't be buying that one. But anyway, that's just an example of something. I mean, like that right there, the Zuni fetish doll from Trilogy of Terror. That was a licensed figure doll, whatever. I mean, it's not screen used or anything. But it's cool, you know, and I love that. And, I pick up things like that from time to time, but honestly, I try to keep myself to just getting, like, I'm trying to just like really focus on screen used props these days. And cause I don't have space, man, I'm running out of space.
Yeah. And that was like, I think one of your videos I've seen is like, you actually getting like screen used props, like especially with some of the Halloween stuff. When did I guess obviously through time and networking and forming relationships, is that how you were able to get access to some of those?
Some of them, yeah, some of them, but like most everybody else, I just have to buy them, seek them out, buy them, a lot of auctions. eBay, auction houses, whatever. I mean, whatever it takes. But I do, I've gotten lucky. My friendship with Christopher Nelson, it has afforded me a few nice gifts from him.
Nice.
But, my first screen used Halloween mask was a gift from Greg Nicotero. I mean, he gave me a Halloween 5 mask as a gift. Now, mind you, that stuff wasn't worth nearly what it's worth now. In hindsight, I'm sure he absolutely regrets giving me that mask. But back then it was kind of like something that was in his garage. Like he was just like, I asked him if I could just get a copy. I was a fan. I kind of became friendly with him at conventions. This is probably 1994. And I said, I'd love to get a copy of the Halloween 5 mask. And do you guys still have the molds for that? And is there any way I could buy one, or I just love to own one? And he said, oh, we still have the molds for that. I could get somebody at the shop to pour you one up. And I go, you don't even need to paint it and hair it. I'll just, I can do it myself. And he's like, no, I get somebody to do that for you. I'm like, no way. And so he goes, well, here, let me give you, he gave me his number and said, call me. And, and I didn't know if he was blowing me off. I didn't know, anyway, I called KMB. They got him on the phone. And I said, yeah, I'm, calling you back about this. And he's all, okay, yeah. And he goes, you know what? I got one that we used in the movie in my garage. Would you want that, or do you want us to pour you up a new one? I go, I'll take that. so that's how I got it. I mean, it was literally, he was about to have his guys make me one. And he said, I got one in the garage we used in the movie. I'm like, please. Yeah.
Nice.
And he gave it and he mailed it to my house. I was blown away. I will always be forever grateful for that. Just shows you he won't. No, I hate to break it to you, fans. He won't do that today because, the prop market has become a whole thing. But that just shows you what a cool guy Greg is, that he saw in me an excited fan, probably like he related to how he felt towards Savini back in the day, and said, you know what, I'm going to give this kid something cool. And crazy thing is now Greg and I are friends. It's a weird how life works.
Yeah. And it brought up another question then, because your many trips now out to Steel City Con to Monroeville for the convention. Yeah, I know Tom Savini's there quite a bit as well. Yeah. Have you what's your relationship like with him?
Really good. I mean, he and I have become friends. I've been over to his house a couple times. In fact, I put up a little video recently where he set me on fire. I'd like to say by accident, but the dude shot at me with a flamethrower. So it's I put it up on YouTube as a little short showing the clip, but the whole story and the footage is in one of our episodes, A Thing with Two Heads. One of the recent ones, maybe 2-3 episodes ago. But yeah, we went over to his house, Chris Nelson and I, because Chris had never been to his house. I'd been over and gotten the tour, but Chris wanted to see it. We went over and he takes us out back. We're going through the garage. He opens the garage door and he's like, here, walk out in the alley. Next thing I know, the guy has a flamethrower and he's shooting a flamethrower. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. Let me get footage of it. And I picked my phone up and I'm like, and he's like, oh, back up a little more. And before I could even take a step back, he shoots the flamethrower at me and it catches my pants on fire. And I didn't notice it at first till Chris points at my leg and goes, you're on fire, you're on fire. And I had to stamp it out. It was funny. Since I didn't get hurt, it was funny. Yeah. But it could have ended a little badly.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Well, Sean, man, I appreciate the stories, man. I appreciate the time. It was great catching up with you. I want to ask you before you get ready to wrap up a couple questions I normally ask my guests that I have on.
Okay.
Who are 3 people who've inspired you and you can credit for making you the person you are today?
Oh, wow. I don't know. That's tough. I mean, I'd have to say John Carpenter is obviously Halloween encompasses my life, so I have to give John Carpenter a huge shout out. I'd have to say my dad, because a lot of what I am and sort of my skills, the skills I have in negotiation and just the gift to gab, if you will, I got from my father. And my father owned his own businesses, and I used to watch the way he did things, and you know how he would buy and sell, and so he was obviously a huge influence. And then I guess the last but not least, I got to shout it out to this guy right here, Gene Simmons.
Yeah,
I mean, Kiss helped shape me for sure, you know, and it also bridged that gap between music and horror, you know. So I give him, you know, a lot of credit of also influencing a young child into his adulthood. So I'd say those 3.
Nice. And then next question, favorite toy as a child?
Man, that's tough. I think it would probably between my Hot Wheels collection, which I don't have anymore, sadly. That's one. That one hurts. But I used to play with those nonstop. But my Atari 2600, man, when I got that Atari, that seemed to change every kid's life. You know, I was glued to that damn thing. And I still have my original Atari plugged in my toy room to a little old school TV. I can play it anytime I want. Set up, ready to go.
Nice. And then any message you have for our military members that are currently serving overseas?
Man, I thank you. That's all I can say is thank you. You know, you're a better man than me. I couldn't do it. I look up to the military, and especially police officers, what the fuck they have to deal with these days.
Yeah.
We're living in a screwed up world right now, and I have nothing but respect for police officers and the crap they have to deal with on a daily basis with their hands tied. I mean, because let's face it, the laws have screwed the men in blue. And it's why I think we're understaffed all over, and far as police and highway patrol and everything. I mean, nobody wants a thankless job like that. And we need to change things. We need to change things to give those guys more support and the military more support so they can do those jobs that nobody wants to do, you know? I mean, I mean, it's a scary world we're living in right now.
Yeah, we're living in a horror movie right now.
Yeah, and we need people to help maintain order, you know?
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. 100%. And then going back to, you know, John Carpenter, big shout out for his influence, you know, on both of us growing up. I'm going to break the, you know, the corporate Zoom meeting thing and show that I'm actually also got Halloween shorts on too.
Man, you got the full getup.
Yeah, I'm all decked out, man. I knew I had to get in the zone for this conversation with you.
I do not have Gene Simmons shorts on.
But once again, I really appreciate your time. It was great getting to know more about you. And, I'm looking forward to next time I run into you at either Steel City Con or have you ever checked out Astronomicon?
Yeah,
heard of that one?
I've gone a few times. Unfortunately, I'm not going to this next one. I have some clients there, but I'm not coming myself. I'm really trying to not go to as many as I used to because honestly, the travel's killing me. I mean, I'm 53 years old. The airports and the hotels and the taxis and all it's wearing on me, man. The travel, the convention part, I love. Meeting the fans, working with the celebrities, I love that. But it's the getting there and getting home. Man, it can be brutal. These flights are brutal.
Trying to sleep in a hotel bed and everything too at our age, man. I just turned 51, so and
your time's all screwed up. I'm on West Coast and I'm over here on the East Coast, and so I'm doing my best to stay home. Like I went to Horrorhound this past weekend. My girlfriend stayed home. This weekend, she's going to Full Moon Horror and Tattoo Fest in Nashville. I'm staying home. I'm going to Spookalla in Tampa, Florida. The next weekend, I think, is Astronomicon, and she's going to that one. So you'll see her there if you happen to be there.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, man, and this was definitely bad planning, man, but that weekend of Astronomicon next month, Steel City Con is the same weekend, and Fan Expo Cleveland is the same weekend. And I usually try and attend all three of those with my daughters, but they're spaced out. You know, this is going to be a pain in the butt because it's like from Cleveland, it's like I'll drive to Monroeville. That's like a 2-hour drive. And then if I drive up to like Livonia or whatever near Detroit, that's, over a 2-hour drive, so it's, I got to choose. My daughters are going to go to Steel City Con. Because, it's more, the only people that I really wanted to see at this one would probably be like Heather Graham and Juliette Lewis. I got to see John Carpenter the last time. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Astronomicon because I'm a big old wrestling fan. And that's always a good time, too. And I've become friends with the organizers there, So
I hate that I'm missing Steel City this time, but I'll probably be at the next one.
All right, sounds good. Well, then I'll catch you at the next one. And that's been crazy, too, the whole thing with the Monroeville Convention Center and all that. So,
well, now the hotel is closed, which is, I don't know how they're going to, I don't know where we're going to stay. That's a bummer because one of my favorite things about going there is being at that hotel, even though that hotel sucked. But the fact that I could just walk across the street to the mall and have lunch, and, get my Dawn of the Dead fix, head back over to the convention, stuff like that, now that we're going to be somewhere else, obviously. So I don't know, but yeah. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But Bob definitely pulls out all the stops for the, the guests at that one. So that's always definitely worth going to. But this time, since everything's the same weekend, I gotta pick and choose. And, I'm going to definitely hit the Cleveland one of the days. And Danny Trejo is going to be there. And, I've seen a lot of the other guests that are going to be there. Like I caught Rose McGowan's coming here, and I caught her at Steel City when I met you. Yeah. So, but yeah, I hopefully in the future they space them out again because I'm going to be putting some miles on. But Sean, for any the fans out there that are like new to, hearing about you and Horrors Hallowed Grounds and everything, want to check you out, where would you send them? Well, on YouTube, it's Sean Clark is the page name now, but it's still at Malfunction, MALFUNCSEAN. And it's same at Malfunction on X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram. And on Facebook, it's facebook.com/Sean Clark Official. Awesome. Well, real quick then, one last favor before we get ready and wrap up.
You mind cutting a promo ID for the show? Just introduce yourself, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
You got it, right? Hey, this is Sean Clark from Horrors Hallowed Grounds and the Thing with Two Heads podcast, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle podcast.
Awesome.
One
Sean
Clark.
Yeah, you are a professional, man. I love it. Dude, Sean, thank you so much. I'm glad we were able to make this happen. And, I'll drop something in Ken's ear to hopefully maybe bring you back for another Cinema Wasteland, too, down the line.
That's okay. I think a lot of those old school guys like him are set in their ways, man. It's fine. I'm plenty busy, man. I've got more conventions than I can deal with, to be honest with you. But I'd love to go back. It was a great show. I always had a good time there. So, but it is what it is.
Gotcha. Well, hopefully I'll catch you at Steel City something. Or, I definitely got to hit Horrorhound sometime. I have yet to do that one, so that's on my list. I'll have to do
Definitely
that.
Got to check that one out.
But thanks again for your time, Sean.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.